Hey everyone, welcome back to the Shivering Mouse. I'm so excited to have you back here with me today, and today we're going to be discussing the next chapter of Prince Caspian. It's chapter 5, Caspian's Adventure in the Mountains. Now you'll notice that this is usually my position for the villain's lair. It's a little cold in my office today, so while it heats up, we're going to do Prince Caspian out here. Alright, so here we go. After this, Caspian and his tutor had many more secret conversations on top of the great tower, and at each conversation Caspian learned more about old Narnia, so that thinking and dreaming about the old days and longing for them to come back filled nearly all of his spare hours. But, of course, he had not many hours to spare, for now his education was beginning in earnest. He learned sword fighting and riding, swimming and diving, how to shoot with a bow and play on the recorder, and how to hunt a stag and cut him up when he was dead, besides cosmography and rhetoric, heraldry, versification, and of course history with the law, physics, alchemy, and astronomy. Of magic he learned only theory, for Dr. Cornelius said the practical art was not the proper study for princes. And I myself, he added, am only a very imperfect magician, and can do only the smallest of experiments, of navigation, which is a noble and heroical art, said the doctor. He was taught nothing, because King Miraz disapproved of ships and the sea. He also learned a great deal by using his own eyes and ears. As a little boy, he had often wondered why he had disliked his aunt, Queen Puriprismia. He now saw that it was because she disliked him. He also began to see that Narnia was an unhappy country. The taxes were high and the laws were stern, and Miraz was a cruel man. After some years, there came a time when the queen seemed to be ill, and there was a great deal of bustle and bother about her in the castle, and doctors came and courtiers whispered. This was in the early summertime, and one night, while all this fuss was going on, Caspian was unexpectedly awakened by Dr. Cornelius after he had only been in bed a few hours. There we go. Are we going to do a little astronomy, Doctor? Asked Caspian. Hush, said the doctor. Trust me and do exactly as I tell you. Put on your clothes. You have a long journey before you. Caspian was very surprised, but he had learned to have confidence in his tutor, and he began doing as he was told at once. When he was dressed, the doctor said, I have a wallet for you. We must go to the next room and fill it with victuals for your highness's supper table. My gentlemen in waiting will be there, said Caspian. They're fast asleep and will not wake, said the doctor. I am a very minor magician, but I can, at least, contrive a charmed sleep. They went into the antechamber, and there, sure enough, the two gentlemen in waiting were sprawled on chairs and snoring hard. Dr. Cornelius quickly cut up the remains of a cold chicken and some slices of venison, and put them with bread and an apple or so, and a little flask of good wine into the wallet, which he then gave to Caspian. It fitted on by a strap over Caspian's shoulder like a satchel you would use for taking books to school. Have you your sword? Asked the doctor. Yes, said Caspian. Then put this mantle over to hide the sword and the wallet. That's right. Now we must go to the great tower and talk. Once they reached the top of the tower, it was a cloudy night, not at all like the night when they had seen the junction of Tarva and Elimbil. Dr. Cornelius said, Dear Prince, you must leave the castle at once and go to seek your fortune in the wide world. Your life is in danger here. Why? Asked Caspian. Because you are the true king of Narnia, Caspian the 10th, the true son and heir of Caspian the 9th. Long live your majesty. And suddenly, to Caspian's great surprise, the little man dropped down on one knee and kissed his hand. What does it all mean? I don't understand, said Caspian. I wonder you have never asked me before, said the doctor, why, being the son of King Caspian, you are not King Caspian yourself. Everyone except your majesty knows that Miraz is a usurper. When he first began to rule, he did not even pretend to be king. He called himself Lord Protector. But then your royal mother died, the good queen, and the only Telmarin who has ever been kind to me. And then, one by one, all the great lords who had known your father died or disappeared. Not by accident, either. Miraz weeded them out. Belazar and Euvulus were shot with the arrows during a hunting party, by chance, it was pretended. All the great house of Passerids he sent to fight giants on the northern frontier, till one by one they fell. Arlian and Aramon and a dozen more he executed for treason by false charge. 2 brothers of Beaver's Dam he shut up as madmen, and finally... Sir, you are making this difficult. Okay, I know. I love you too. Oh, see, now you've made me lose my spot. Ah, here we go. And finally he persuaded the 7 noble lords, who alone among all the Telmarans did not fear the sea, to sail away and look for new lands beyond the Eastern Ocean, and, as he intended, they never came back. And when there was no one left who would speak a word for you, then his flatterers, as he had instructed them, begged him to become king, and of course he did. "Do you mean that now he wants to kill me too?" said Caspian. "That is almost certain," said Dr. Cornelius. "But why now?" said Caspian. "I mean, why didn't he do it long ago if he wanted to? And what harm have I done him? He has changed his mind about you because of something that has happened only 2 hours ago. The Queen has had a son." "I don't see what that's got to do with it," said Caspian. "Don't see!" exclaimed the doctor. "Have all my lessons in history and politics taught you no more than that? Listen, as long as he had no children of his own, he was willing enough that you should be king after he died. He may not have cared much about you, but he would rather you should have the throne than a stranger. Now that he has a son of his own, he will want his own son to be the next king. You're in the way. He'll clear you out of the way." "Is he really as bad as that?" said Caspian. "Would he really murder me?" "He murdered your father," said Dr. Cornelius. Caspian felt very strange and said nothing. "I can tell you the whole story," said the doctor, "but not now. There's no time. You must fly at once." "You'll come with me," said Caspian. "I dare not," said the doctor. "It would make your danger greater. 2 are more easily tracked than 1. Dear Prince, dear King Caspian, you must be very brave. You must go alone and at once. Try to get across the southern border to the court of King Nain of Archenland. He will be good to you." "Shall I ever see you again?" said Caspian in a quavering voice. "I hope so, dear king," said the doctor. "What friend have I in the whole wide world except your majesty? And I have a little magic, but in the meantime, speed is everything. Here are 2 gifts before you go. This is a little purse of gold. Alas, all the treasure in this castle should be your own by rights. And here is something far better." He put in Caspian's hands something which he could hardly see, but he knew by the feel to be a horn. "That," said Dr. Cornelius, "is the greatest and most sacred treasure in all of Narnia. Many terrors I have endured, many spells I have had to utter to find it, when I was still young. It is the magic horn of Queen Susan herself, which she left behind her when she vanished from Narnia at the end of the Golden Age. It is said that whoever blows it will have strange help. No one can say how strange. It may have the power to call Queen Lucy, King Edmund, Queen Susan, and High King Peter back from the past, and they will set all to rights. It may be that it will call up Aslan itself. Take it, King Caspian, but do not use it except at your greatest need. And now, haste, haste! The little door at the very bottom of the tower, the door into the garden, is unlocked. There we must part." "Can't I get my horse?" said Caspian. "He is already saddled and waiting for you just at the corner of the orchard. Orchard, not orchard. That's not a word." During the long climb down the winding staircase, Cornelius whispered many more words of direction and advice. Caspian's heart was sinking, but he tried to take it all in. Then came the fresh air in the garden, a fervent hand-clasp with the doctor, and a run across the lawn, a welcoming whinny from his horse, and so King Caspian X left the castle of his fathers. Looking back, he saw fireworks going up to celebrate the birth of the new prince. All night he rode southward, choosing byways and bridle paths through the woods as long as he was in the country that he knew, but afterwards he kept to the high road. His horse was excited as his master at this unusual journey, and Caspian, though tears had come from his eyes at saying goodbye to Dr. Cornelius, felt brave and, in a way, happy to think that he was King Caspian riding to seek adventures with his sword on his hip and Queen Susan's magic horn at his right. But when day came, with a sprinkle of rain, he looked about him and saw on every side unknown woods, wild heaths, blue mountains, and he thought of how large and strange the world was, and he began to feel frightened and small. As soon as the dull gray light, As soon as it was full daylight, he left the road and found an open grassy place amid the wood where he had a rest. He took off his horse's bridle and let him graze. He ate some cold chicken and drank a little wine and presently fell asleep. It was late afternoon when he awoke. He ate a morsel and continued on his journey, still southward, by many unfrequented lanes. He was now in the little hills, going up and down, but always more up than down. From every ridge he could see the mountains growing bigger and blacker ahead. As the evening closed in, he was riding their lower slopes. The wind rose, and soon rain fell in torrents. His horse became uneasy. There was thunder in the air, and now they entered a dark and seemingly endless pine forest. and all the stories Caspian had ever heard of trees being unfriendly to men crowded his mind. He remembered that he was, after all, a Telmarine, one of the race who had cut down trees wherever they could, and were at war with all wild things. Though he himself might be unlike other Telmarines, the trees could not be expected to know this. Nor did they. The wind became a tempest, and the woods roared and creaked all around them. There was a crash, and a tree fell right across the road behind him. Quiet, said Caspian, patting his horse's neck, but he was trembling himself, and he knew that he had escaped death by an inch. Lightning flashed, and a great crack of thunder seemed to break through the sky just overhead. The horse bolted in good earnest, and Caspian was a good rider, but he had not the strength to hold him back. He kept his seat, but he knew that his life hung by a thread during the wild chase that followed. Tree after tree rose up before them in the dusk, and was only just avoided, then almost too quickly to hurt, yet it did hurt him too. Something struck Caspian on the forehead, and he knew nothing more. When he came to, he was lying in a fire-lit place with bruised limbs and a bad headache. Low voices were speaking close at hand. "And now," said one, "before it wakes up, we must decide what to do with it." "Kill it," said another. "We can't let it live. It would betray us." "We ought to have killed it at once, or else left it alone," said the third voice. "We can't kill it now. Not after taking it in and bandaging its head. That would be murdering a guest." "Gentlemen," said Caspian in a feverish voice, "whatever you do to me, I hope that you will be kind to my poor horse." "Your horse has taken flight long before we found you," said the first voice, a curiously husky, earthy voice, as Caspian now noticed. "Now, don't let it talk you round with its pretty words," said the second voice. "Still, I say—" "Horns and halibuts!" exclaimed the third voice. "Of course we're not going to murder it. For shame, Knickerbrick! What do you say, Truffle Hunter? What shall we do with it?" "I shall give it a drink," said the first voice, presumably Truffle Hunter's. A dark shape approached the bed. Caspian felt an arm slipped gently under his shoulders, if it was exactly an arm. The shape somehow seemed wrong. The face that bent forward to him seemed wrong, too. He got the impression that it was very hairy, and the nose was very long, and there were odd white patches on each side of it. "It's a mask of some sort," thought Caspian, "or perhaps I'm in a fever and imagining it all." A cupful of something sweet and hot was set to his lips, and he drank. But at the moment, one of the others poked the fire. A blaze sprang up, and Caspian almost screamed with shock at the sudden light as the sudden light revealed the face that was looking into his own. It was not a man's face, but a badger's, though larger and friendlier and more intelligent than the face of any badger he had ever seen before. And it was certainly talking. He saw, too, that he was on a bed of heather in a cave. By the fire sat two little bearded men, so much wilder and shorter and hairier and thicker than Dr. Cornelius that he knew them at once to be real dwarfs, ancient dwarfs with not a drop of human blood in their veins. And Caspian knew at once that he had found the old Narnians at last, and his head began to swim again. In the next few days he learned to know them by names. The badger was called Truffle Hunter, and he was the oldest and kindest of the three. The dwarf who had wanted to kill Caspian was a sour black dwarf, that is, his hair and beard were black and thick and hard as horsehair. His name was Knickerbrick. The other dwarf was a red dwarf, with hair rather like a fox's, and he was called Trumpkin. "Now," said Knickerbrick, on the first evening when Caspian was well enough to sit up and talk, "we still have to decide what to do with this human. You two think that you've done it a great kindness by not letting me kill it, but I suppose the upshot is that we have to keep it prisoner for life. I'm certainly not going to let it go alive, back to its own kind, to betray its all." "Bulbs and boasters, Knickerbrick," said Trumpkin. "Why need you talk so unhandsomely? It isn't the creature's fault that it bashed its head against a tree outside our hole, and I don't think it looks like a traitor." "I say," said Caspian, "you haven't yet found out whether I want to go back." "I don't. I'd rather stay with you if you'll let me. I've been looking for people like you my whole life." "That's a likely story," growled Knickerbrick. "You're a Telmarine and a human, aren't you? Of course you want to go back to your own kind." "Well, even if I did, I couldn't," said Caspian. "I was flying for my life when I had the accident. The king wants to kill me, and if you'd kill me, you'd have done the very thing to please him." "Well now," said Truffle Hunter, "you don't say so." "Eh?" said Trumpkin. "What's that? What have you been doing, human, to fall foul of Miraz at your age?" "He's my uncle," said Caspian, and Knickerbrick jumped up with his hand on his dagger. "There you are," he cried, "not only a Telmarin, but close kin and heir to our greatest enemy. Are you still mad enough to let this creature live?" He would have stabbed Caspian then and there if the Badger and Trumpkin hadn't gotten him away and forced him back into his seat and held him down. "Now, once and for all, Knickerbrick," said Trumpkin, "will you contain yourself, or must Truffle Hunter and I sit on your head?" It's an unusual punishment, but I'll take it. Knickerbrick sulkily promised to behave, and the other two asked Caspian to tell his whole story. When he had done so, there was a moment's silence. "That's the strangest thing I have ever heard," said Trumpkin. "I don't like it," said Knickerbrick. "I didn't know there were stories about us still told among the humans. The less they know about us, the better. That old nurse, now, she'd better have held her tongue. And it's all mixed up with that tutor, a renegade dwarf. I hate them. I hate them worse than the humans. You mark my words, no good'll come of it." "Don't you go talking about things you don't understand, Knickerbrick," said Truffle Hunter. "You dwarves are as forceful and changeable as the humans themselves. I'm a beast, I am, and a badger, what's more, and we don't change. We hold on. I say, great good will come of it. This is the true king of Narnia, and we beasts remember, even if the dwarves forgot, that Narnia was never right except when a son of Adam was king." "Whistles and whirligigs, Truffle Hunter," said Trumpkin, but Trumpkin's got a lot of weird exclamations here. "You don't mean that you want to give our country to the humans?" "I said nothing about that," answered the Badger. "It's not man's country. Who should know that better than me? But it's a country for a man to be king of. We Badgers have long enough memories to know that. Why, bless us all, wasn't the High King Peter a man?" "Do you believe all those old stories?" asked Trumpkin. "I tell you, we don't change, we beasts," said Truffle Hunter. "We don't forget. I believe in the High King Peter and the rest that reigned at Cair Paravel as firmly as I believe in Aslan himself." "As firmly as that, I dare say," said Trumpkin, "but who believes in Aslan these days?" "I do," said Caspian, "and if I hadn't believed in him before, I would now. Back there among humans, people who laughed at Aslan would have laughed at stories about talking beasts and dwarves. Sometimes I did wonder if there really was such a person as Aslan, but then sometimes I wondered if there were really people like you. Yet there you are." "That's right," said Truffle Hunter. "You're right, King Caspian. And as long as you will be true to old Narnia, you will be my king, whatever they say. Long live your majesty." "You make me sick, Badger," growled Knickerbrick. "The High King Peter and the rest may have been men, but they were a different sort of men. This is one of the cursed Telmarines. He has hunted beasts for sport, haven't you?" he added, rounding suddenly on Caspian. "Well, to tell you the truth, I have, but they weren't talking beasts." "It's all the same thing," said Knickerbrick. "No, no, no," said Truffle Hunter. "You know it isn't. You know very well that the talking beasts and the beasts in Narnia these days you know very well that the beasts in Narnia these days are different, and no more than the poor, dumb, witless creatures you find in Calormen and Telmar. They're smaller, too. They're far different from us and the half-dwarves. They're as far different from us as the half-dwarves are from you." There was a great deal more talk, but it all ended with the agreement that Caspian should stay, and even the promise that as soon as he was able to go out, he should be taken to see what Trumpkin called the others, for apparently in these wild parts all sorts of creatures from the old days of Narnia still lived on in hiding. Next is Chapter 6, The People That Lived in Hiding. So we'll find out more about the old Narnians, where they're at, and what kind of lives they've been living in the meantime. So hopefully, for Caspian at least, he's going to make a good impression because he needs help. He's just a little boy in the woods. Thank you for tuning in today, and I'll look forward to talking to you more this week about some Disney villains and another favorite Disney attraction. Have a wonderful day.